For over a century, steam was the most dominant form of motive power on railways around the world, but the invention of the internal combustion engine was starting to change the status quo. Diesel engines could theoretically produce the same amount of horsepower as a steam engine, but in the early days there came the issue of getting that power to the locomotive's wheels. Many different methods were tried, including mashing a steam locomotive and a diesel engine together. Nowadays, the most ideal way of utilising a diesel engine in a locomotive is with diesel-electric transmission, where, long story short, the engine powers a dynamo which generates electrical energy, which is then sent to the motors driving the engine's wheels. In the 1920s, however, when diesel engines were first emerging, the dynamos and electrical equipment needed to generate the power weren't quite compact enough to fit snugly in a locomotive, and were very difficult to build and maintain. As such, other forms of transmission were looked into. Mechanical drive isn't best suited for big locomotives, and hydraulic transmission was very rough around the edges, and so eventually the idea came about to simply try the same transmission as steam locomotives. To simplify, the way a steam engine works is high-pressure steam enters one end of a cylinder and is exhausted out of the other. This is then reversed, so steam enters the other side while being exhausted out of the opposite end, creating a backwards and forwards motion. The cylinder can then be connected to a wheel to rotate it, and boom, you have propulsion. Because the cylinder works with pressure, it's entirely possible to propel a steam engine using compressed air in place of steam, and that's exactly what Germany tried to do. In 1924, the Deutsche Reichsbahn ordered a diesel locomotive from Maschinenfabrik Esslingen to test on passenger services. The Class 78s had proven to be ideal express passenger tank engines, and so it was decided the new diesel locomotive would be based on them. After 3 years of development, a prototype engine was finally put together, essentially using the frames and motion of a Class 78, but fitted with an MAN 2-cylinder double-acting single-stage air compressor powered by a 6-cylinder LO6 VU4542 engine originally designed for use in U-boats. The compressed air would be sent to the 2 cylinders at the front of the engine, which powered the wheels in the same way steam from a boiler would, making it possibly the first diesel pneumatic locomotive in the world. Measuring in at 15.8 meters long, the 464 weighed 111 tons, had 1600mm driving wheels, 710 by 650mm cylinders, and a cab at either end. It was numbered V3201 and testing began in 1929 around Stuttgart, where it was found the locomotive was capable of reaching 80 km an hour while pulling a heavy train. Not only that, but it was capable of starting a 233-ton train on a grade of 1 in 40 faster than most other steam engines of a similar size. Further testing seemed to yield positive results, but despite the exceptional performance, it seems that it wasn't enough to justify how complex the machine was to operate and maintain. The compressor's cylinders needed cooling, and this was achieved by injecting minute amounts of heated water into them as they worked, water that was heated by the engine's exhaust to help make injection easier and to prevent buildup of scale in the system. This also, however, meant that steam could condense into water in the system, and bleed valves had to be installed to prevent any kind of water damage. In order to work properly, the air used to drive the wheels needed to not only be compressed, but heated to expand too. As such, once it was compressed, the air would also be warmed up using waste heat from the engine's exhaust before arriving in the driving cylinders. On top of that, compressing air produces a lot of heat, resulting in a significant amount of energy being wasted, making the process very inefficient, especially as you not only have to cool the air, but then also need to heat it again. Compare that to a steam locomotive that simply needs to heat the water in its boiler before sending it to the cylinders in order to achieve the same performance. Eventually being renumbered V120001, testing of the locomotive continued until 1933, and while it did perform well, its complex design made it costly to maintain, and despite the addition of radiators and water injection, the air compressor was prone to overheating. By the end of that year it was withdrawn, being scrapped sometime between 1933 and 1935. While not the technical achievement Deutsche Reichsbahn had hoped for, the experiment did pave the way for DRV 140001 and other diesel hydraulic locomotives. Italy also experimented with diesel pneumatic locomotives, but that's another story for another day. As technology improved, diesel-electric transmission eventually became the standard for diesel locomotives, with diesel pneumatic fading into obscurity. Diesel and steam locomotives are often viewed as chalk and cheese, one being the antithesis of the other. But the DRV 3201 is a unique example of two seeming opposites coming together and creating something amazing. It might not have been a perfect locomotive, but it certainly shows us that even things we normally view as incompatible still have the potential to work in harmony. The one thing I can't figure out, however, is since it's both diesel and pneumatic, would it have had a horn or a whistle? I think I'll leave that one up to the comments. Subscribe for more.